Welcome to Let's Talk Buffalo, a radio program produced by students at Buffalo State College.
We conduct on-the-street interviews with Buffalo residents about the things that are happening right now in the community, as well as sit-down interviews with local officials and experts in their fields. The show airs 1 week a month at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on WBNY 91.3.
For each episode, we pick a topic that we investigate further. Today's topic is Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our Thanksgiving edition of Let's Talk Buffalo. We're thankful for so many things this year, and one of them is being able to speak to others about what they are thankful for. We're here in the Buffalo State Student Union on this very snowy Saturday afternoon on November 13th.
May I ask you, what does Thanksgiving mean to you?
Thanksgiving is just a time for us to just be around family and just kind of appreciate what we have.
Family.
Yeah, spending time with your family and good food.
I feel that Thanksgiving is a means of coming together with family and friends and, I don't know, maybe settle a couple of problems because, things get hectic, especially at Thanksgiving whenever there's something not said, So, yeah.
Family.
Food, a lot of free food.
Every time I go home, right? Just really, you gotta really evaluate, the family values. You know what I'm saying, right? And then of course the food. I mean,
there you go.
It depends on the family you got though. If they got bad eats, then what can you really do?
If your family can't cook, do not go to that dinner table.
I think y'all can slide to my crib. I think Thanksgiving is just like a time to just chill, reevaluate. Like you said, reevaluate some things, get your life together, and then it's food. Like we think Thanksgiving, no one thinks. You think family, but you think your family cooking food.
Right, yeah, dude, that's what I think.
We're college students. I'm sick of eating dining hall food. I need something good. You feel me?
I need that nice family home cooking.
What's your favorite dish on the table?
Oh my God, that's mac and cheese.
The mac and cheese always slaps.
Always
slaps. You gotta have at least.
You need some pernil con arroz, habichuela, pollo.
Okay, they don't know what that means. They don't know what that means. They don't know what that means.
Man, what do I like? I ain't gonna lie. The cornbread. Cornbread.
Mac and cheese.
There's so many options.
Lasagna.
Potato salad.
Potato salad, mango, plátano, salami.
Sweet potato pie though. Oh my God.
All we know is that every single dish that our family makes slaps.
If it's a grandma though, you gotta make sure it's a grams, bro. If it's not a gram, bro, it's not gonna be good eats.
If your kitchen don't got a grandma or auntie, that's not gonna be valid eats.
What is one thing that you're thankful for?
I'm thankful for the fact that I get to be here at college and I'm privileged enough to be here. And I'm also really thankful for my family and my pets.
Coming to Buff State.
Nature.
Life.
I'm just thankful for my blessings.
I'm thankful that I'm still alive today, I could say the easy answer and be like, I'm thankful for my family and my friends. But, what are you when you don't have those things, You need to be able to compensate for yourself without anybody else, So I'm just thankful that I'm still here grinding, So
That's a powerful statement. Thank you. Thank you, Zaid.
So, Tanya, what are you thankful for this year?
I'm most thankful that we're back in school due to COVID-19 regulations, being able to go back to school and be in person. I'm also thankful for not catching COVID-19 or none of my loved ones.
I'm thankful for life, family, friends, and blessed to see another day.
Okay. All right, Moises, what are you thankful for?
Well, I'm thankful for many things, but if I have to pinpoint one thing specifically, it would have to be the people that I interact with every day, the relationships that I've established, because I initially coming into the semester, I thought senior year was going to suck because all my friends had transferred out or other things happened to them. They couldn't be a part of this, but the people I met during the COVID semesters and then actually coming here and meeting them in person, it kind of legitimized my year. So now it's something I'm looking forward to instead of dreading.
I am thankful for my daughter. She keeps me on my toes, she keeps me motivated, and she gives me a lot of purpose in life.
So, Professor Braemer, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful that I didn't get sick and that I'm back in school. I love teaching the students and having a good job and having great students, basically.
Hi, Brittany. What are you thankful for?
I am thankful for my husband, John. I love him very much. And I love my dog, Oliver. They keep me going when I'm stressed out, when I'm anxious. They're the ones who just pick me up. And I'm really thankful to be back in person in school because I really feel like having these interactions they keep me afloat. They really do. Being around everyone at WBNY makes me feel whole as a person. It sounds lame, but that's really what I'm thankful for.
I'm with you on that one.
Thank you so much for tuning into our interview portion of our Thanksgiving edition of Let's Talk Buffalo. We will be discussing the historically accurate account of the first Thanksgiving. My name is Kate Malilay.
And my name is Tanya Gamble. It is Friday, November 19th, and we're here in the WBNY recording studio to speak with our guests, Professor Lisa Marie Anselmi and Kashmir Bowser. Before we get started with this interview, I would like the guests to introduce themselves.
Okay. I'm Professor or Dr. Lisa Marie Anselmi. I'm an archaeologist and the chair of anthropology here at Buffalo State.
Sego, I'm Kashmir Bowser. I am Gayokono of the Six Nations of Grand River, that's Upper Cayuga. I am an anthropology major and Indigenous Studies minor here at Buff State.
Can you talk about the American myth of Thanksgiving and the true story of what happened in Plymouth?
Certainly. The first Thanksgiving is structured around an interaction between the English, or the Pilgrims, as we often refer to them, and the Wampanoag, the nearby indigenous group. What happened was in 1620, when the Pilgrims finally make land in what becomes the area around Plymouth, Massachusetts today, they encounter essentially a coast that didn't seem to have too many indigenous peoples. What in reality was that the epidemic diseases had gone through that area first, and the Wampanoag had pulled back a bit from the coast. So about the next March, in about 1621, they finally meet some of the Wampanoag individuals, and later that year, allegedly around October, November, they end up having a harvest feast. It's at that time that they send out a group of men, they go a-fowling, and what they're probably getting are grouse or pheasants to eat. At that time, they also engage in some rest behavior, which for them also included drinking some alcoholic beverages. And in their enthusiasm, they shoot their guns off towards the sky. And this brings the Wampanoag warriors, led by their principal sachem, or chief, that we know today as Massasoit. And he and his warriors come because they're concerned of what's happening at the time, and they are reluctantly then invited to join with the folks at Plymouth in order to share in the harvest. And the Wampanoag go out, they bring back 3 to 5 deer for the celebration, and they proceed to have that meal. The trick to that is we don't have a widespread Thanksgiving holiday in this country until initially 1777. George Washington decides that it would be a good unifier. It really takes off in 1863 when President Abraham Lincoln is trying to reunify the country. And then through that period, the late 1800s into the early 1900s, it's rejuvenated again in World War II, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president at the time, was trying to rally the folks who were at home and trying to, make it a bright light for folks who had been suffering through World War II.
When did the widespread Thanksgiving holiday take off in the United States?
It's really after 1943 or so, after Franklin Delano Roosevelt puts an emphasis on it in one of his States of the Union addresses. And they're called the sort of 4 R's, and so one of them is the freedom from want, really. And so a big harvest feast with, a big turkey and lots of mashed potatoes is something that becomes the narrative that correlates to this notion of a Thanksgiving holiday. And at the time, we have Norman Rockwell, who's a pretty famous artist. He was doing magazine covers and advertisements and things like this. And one of the images that he paints is actually a housewife with her grown son who's in his military uniform, his GI uniform, and they're sitting there peeling a whole mound of potatoes to make mashed potatoes.
How did the Great Feast become a focal point of the falsehoods in this story?
Well, first of all, we could take a look at some of the food that was probably served at this harvest festival initially. So first off, you're having maybe pheasant or grouse, not turkey. There wouldn't have been any potatoes, for example, because they were domesticated in South America and had yet to make their way up to North America.
There are many traditional dishes that are passed across the table on Thanksgiving. We have Kashmir Bowser with us via Zoom to talk about some traditional indigenous foods that are shared during this time. Hi, Kashmir.
Hi. So one of the things that, especially when we're talking about this issue of a falsehood behind Thanksgiving, I think is really important, is that a lot of the quote unquote traditional Thanksgiving foods that we eat, things like turkey, cranberry sauce, anything of the Three Sisters, corned beans and squash, most of these are native to Turtle Island. They're native to North America. So looking at the research for this interview, looking at research that I've been doing in my independent study, it's really great to see how this concept of traditional food has evolved over time. So turkey is indigenous to North America, Three Sisters, like I said. And while indigenous people most likely, well, maybe, they probably weren't eating a can of gelled cranberry sauce. My family will make this cranberry. It's not a sauce as you would typically think. We eat it over meat, but it has maple syrup and cranberries in it, and that's something that would be something that as an indigenous person I would eat during this holiday. Whether that is something that would have been served at the first Thanksgiving, I'm not sure. Other traditional meals that indigenous people all over Turtle Island will eat include things like tamales. You'll get those in like the Mexico, southern US area, rice cakes or any form of rice. You can get like rice pudding. Those are also pretty common. Almost anything with Three Sisters, you can make salads with those. You can make succotash with those. There's a lot of different dishes you can make with those. Most indigenous people that I know personally eat turkey, but there are some people that will eat things such as bison. They'll do like a bison roast or like a venison roast. So there's a lot of food out there, a lot of which that we eat on Thanksgiving that is actually traditionally indigenous food. And then there is some reclamation of traditional indigenous foods, like with the tamales and the bison that we see.
That all sounds so delicious, honestly.
It is delicious.
Hi, I'm Professor Braemer here, faculty advisor to Let's Talk Buffalo and WBNY. And I just wanted to know how Professor Anselmi is going to celebrate her own Thanksgiving.
Well, for my family, it's mostly about being together. My mother is Hungarian, And a vegetarian. So growing up, we never really had turkey. Instead, we have a variety of raviolis, and so we usually open the bag to boil the ravioli up. And that has suited our family. But Kashmir's family and all of the indigenous dishes really do sound delicious. It is sometimes also this holiday difficult for members of the indigenous communities. The Wampanoag, for example, they have for about 50 years now hosted a National Day of Mourning on the so-called traditional day of Thanksgiving because of the results of colonization in this country.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does maybe Kashmir maybe wants to talk a little bit about that, or more specifically about how her family celebrates Thanksgiving?
Yeah, so my family, obviously, we do not celebrate the stereotypical Pilgrim and Native people coming together. Although I do have a couple family members that came from the Mayflower, their ancestors did. So I guess in a silly kind of way, maybe. But so like Dr. Anselmi, we use it as a time to come together as a family. We take advantage of having the day off, of everyone having the day off, and we cook together and we spend time together. And there is, especially you'll find in indigenous communities, there is something unifying about sharing a meal and cooking a meal together. This does not have to do with Thanksgiving, but generally after funerals, indigenous people will share large meals together and laugh and joke. And so it's kind of the same thing. It's a way to pay respect to our ancestors in that way. But it's also about spending time together. And I agree with Dr. Anselmi. Well, my family does not do like a national day of mourning. This time of year is it's really hard. I just yesterday had to email my child's school about a very inappropriate assignment that he brought home. So it's definitely not easy. And it's always a good reminder to keep indigenous people in your thoughts this time of year. If you know an indigenous person that, maybe isn't local or doesn't have family, invite them over for Thanksgiving to feed them and to feed their spirit a little bit.
Can we ask a follow-up question about that assignment? What was the assignment?
So my son has recently been learning about Squanto. They did like this was actually pretty cute. They did like so for anyone who doesn't know, Squanto taught the Pilgrims how to fertilize the soil using fish. So they had little pictures of fish and then corn kernels, which I can understand that's pretty appropriate for a first grader. He brought home, I wish I had the paper, but I threw it out. It was called Indian Picture Writing. And on it was a piece of hide that had pictographs on it that were incredibly inappropriate. I wrote an email to the teacher and told them that there were pictures of teepees, which we know the Wampanoags did not use teepees, assuming we were talking about them since they have been learning about Squanto. There was just a lot of very obvious erasure and trying to make a monolithic group of indigenous people. And it's a really hard time of year. It was really hard. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that this lesson in school makes a mockery of their culture and a mockery of their ancestors in a way that he would understand? And I'm 31 and I cried when I saw it. I cried when I was writing that email because it's not easy. It's not something I ever thought I would still have to explain to people, but I do. So it was not a good assignment.
I can only imagine how painful that must be to have these stereotypes being, perpetuated over and over again.
I'm Joseph Scordo, editor for Let's Talk Buffalo, and I just wanted to ask the two of you, since it sounds like, Thanksgiving as we celebrate it is perhaps not as significant or perhaps a day of remembrance and mourning, I'd like to ask if there are any holidays which you celebrate which would have more significance to your culture.
So it's not so much a holiday. I personally love summertime because that means that there are powwows, which is open to everybody. It is not exclusively an Indigenous ceremony. Non-Indigenous people can go and they can dance and they can partake in the food, but there is just something about being outside and being surrounded by Indigenous people in their regalia, selling and eating food that was made it was made out of desperation, and it's a symbol of Indigenous people's resilience. There's just something really powerful being with a group of Indigenous people who are smiling and laughing and sharing the culture. So that's not a holiday per se, but it's a season of the year. And it's my favorite season.
Well, I would like to point out that for many Indigenous peoples, the fact that November is Native American month can be a challenge. And on this campus, the Native American Student Organization in the past has actually changed that a bit and had a celebration on campus in April. And so this coming April, we hope to have some events on campus, maybe some speakers, maybe some workshops of some traditional crafts and things of that nature. So that would be something that everyone could come and learn a bit more about Indigenous peoples at.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And how about you?
I actually have a quick question. So my name is Joana. I am a producer and interviewer for Let's Talk Buffalo. And I just want to thank you both for being here with us. This is really incredible and a really good opportunity for us to learn. And I was wondering, with like the school systems and what we are taught growing up, I'm also a mom. So I really want to make sure that my daughter is learning the appropriate history. And so I was wondering what we can do as parents and also what the school system can do better to get an accurate account of what, Thanksgiving actually is.
For me, as an Indigenous person and as a mom, I think we need to stop the false narrative. I mean, my child still brings home things relating to the Pilgrims and the Native people eating together. And, we know that wasn't the case. And I don't think, like, my child is learning about Squanto. I don't think that we need to teach 6-year-olds that he was enslaved and taken away from his people and then brought back, unless, that's something that you want to do, which is what we do in my household. My child is taught the truth. And I am a very firm believer that if brown and Black kids are young enough to experience racism, that non-brown and Black kids are young enough to learn about it. So I think in regards to Thanksgiving, I think the truth needs to be taught. I think we can make it so that it is not blood and guts and killing and genocide, but we can make it, kids are smart and they are so receptive to these kinds of things. We can teach them the truth and they will understand it in their own way.
And I think all across the country, learning about the Indigenous peoples in your community, because they're still in every community. Here in Western New York, that would mean learning about the Haudenosaunee and the various groups as part of that confederacy, but also their relatives, the groups we know as the Erie or the Wenro. We can also, of course, learn from the communities right here in our midst. So that might be the Tuscarora, it might be the Tonawanda Band of Seneca, it might be the Seneca Indian Nation. So going and attending cultural festivals, for example. The Seneca Niagara Casino literally puts one of these on. In Niagara Falls this weekend, there will be the Native American Cultural Center having a festival. Participating in that, taking your children there so that they can learn from Indigenous peoples themselves is a good way to combat all of this false narrative.
Is there a good source online, perhaps, to find where these are taking place and like the times?
Yes, they actually are often on social media like Facebook. There's also announcements in the Buffalo News, in some of the mainstream news channels, and so on.
Thank you so much.
I was just wondering, both of you, like, do you know of any children's books that might be nice to use to counter this false narrative?
There are a lot of children's books out there. I actually just bought my son a Hiawatha and the Peacemaker Belt, which is about the Six Nations Confederacy. But if you go to firstnations.org/books. Those are adult books, but there's a link there that will send you to like a 3-page PDF of children's books that are age appropriate. They're like grouped from like pre-K, toddler, first grade, second grade, that kind of thing. I can send you that link as well if you'd like to include it, but that is a really good resource. There's lots of children's books out there written by Indigenous people telling their stories, and they are amazing.
Well, thank you, Professor Anselmi and Kashmir Bowser, for joining us today and sharing your expertise on the subject of the true story of Thanksgiving. And thank you, Kashmir, for sharing your traditional Indigenous foods with us and our listeners. This episode of Let's Talk Buffalo has been such a joy to produce, and we're so thankful for all the hard work that went into this special Thanksgiving episode.
We learned so much about the historically accurate account of Thanksgiving, and we hope you did too. If you're looking for a way to teach your children about the true Thanksgiving story, check out firstnations.org.
A special thank you to our guests, Professor Lisa Marie Anselmi and Kashmir Bowser,
WBNY's faculty advisor, Professor Dorothea Braemer, and our interviewers, Kate Malilay and Tanya Gamble,
our editor, Joe Scordo, our producer and audio technician, Joana Leamon, and our writer, Brittany Whalen. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Let's Talk Buffalo on WBNY 91.3, Buffalo State's student-led radio station. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to explore what matters most to you.